All right, everyone, it is Dokkan time again, and today's how to build is going to be for the newly super EZA Beerus. So this is probably one of the oldest units in the bloody game, I think. Came out in 2016. Yeah, 2016. This is literally one of the first actual units in the game that was like really good upon release, and I think that was pretty much it. After release, I mean, he probably slowly fell off. I honestly don't remember too much because I didn't actually get him on release. So it's been a hot minute since I've used him. Even during his actual other EZA, like, it wasn't like anything impressive. But now after his Super EZA, he is actually very impressive. Oddly enough, I will say that Beerus has never really been he's never been a contender, as you could say. He's never been in the spotlight. He's never been like the best unit in the game. He's never been like, he's just kind of been there. I mean, he's got instruction, so I guess yeah, that's accurate. He's there. He's in the background, and he's all powerful, especially this time. I like him. I have a couple problems with him, primarily with his team. He doesn't really have one. That's probably going to be my biggest gripe with this Beerus, is that he doesn't really have a primary team that he can go on. He's kind of spaced out. He's spaced out in several different areas. He doesn't have a perfect meta-worthy link partner. And that's just kind of my gripe with him. I don't think he's going to get any better. I don't think he's going to get really any worse. The only way that this Beerus actually gets better is if he gets a better 200% leader, and if he actually gets, like, I don't know, another Beerus and Whis come out, or another Whis comes out that's like absurdly good. But otherwise, he's just kind of there. He's a good tank, though. I like his Super EZA. His Super EZA is good. I'm kind of down playing him right now in the intro here, but I just figure I really had to throw that in there. His build and rolls are just going to be cycling on the right side. I'll go over them after we go over the breakdown, and of course we will go through his defense as well. So, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's any other units you want me to show you or give you suggestions on how to build. Remember, my builds are purely for suggestion. Anyways, so, moving on to it. Beerus does have a rage mode, which we will get into, but his 200% leader options are kind of weird. As I was saying in the intro before, is like, he doesn't have like a perfect team per se to be going on, you know. Int LR Broly really wants to have uncontrollable power units on the team. You know, just taking off one uncontrollable power like Beerus, not too big of a deal. You just got to be aware of it, that when Beerus is on the rotation, you cannot activate Broly's domain. So that's something to keep in mind. And same thing with the 200% Carnival Broly. He is a good leader, of course, and he's a very good unit. But Broly wants to really be either in slot 1 or slot 2. He really wants to take the spotlight. Whereas Beerus also wants to be in kind of a slot 1 position, but they're not linking together, like, almost at all whatsoever. And he doesn't really link well with any of the other units on the team. And then you got Saiyans Have No Limits. AGL Vegito Blue. That is a perfectly fine team if you're okay with that unit specifically. LR Gohan, not a great leader anymore. You can definitely run it. You can run a 200% Bond of Master with him. I just feel like he's completely pushed off to flotation, primarily. Lord Slug is a decent-esque option, but once again, domain issues. So he will weaken Beerus because Beerus is a super type unit, so that is something to keep in mind. And then Hirudegarn, I don't think Hirudegarn's a good 200% option for him, as he does his other leader skills, Resurrected Warriors. You're not really gaining too much from it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I haven't tested out Hirudegarn lead enough, and maybe that's actually his secret best team. And then there's, of course, Turles. So he is a 90% tech lead. He greatly lowers defense. Remember, Super EZAs do not change the super attack. The super attack stays as it was. So that's why there's no attack and defense on super. As far as his kit goes, he has Ki +3, attack and defense 160. He gets another attack and defense 160, and has a 50% chance of performing a crit when performing a super attack. Remember what I normally say. If a unit has at least 50% crit, you don't need to put any crit into their hidden potential system. It's just a coin flip. That's all it is. It's just a coin flip crit. Nothing wrong with that. Plus an additional attack and defense 160, and guards all attacks when there is another movie boss, Realm of Gods, or Exploding Rage category ally attacking in the same turn. So if you run him on a team, no matter what, that has at least a movie boss, Realm of Gods, or Exploding Rage on the same turn with him, that is ideal. You want to make sure his guard is going off and that extra chunk of defense. Plus an additional attack and defense plus 40% with each attack received up to 160. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16. So you need to get hit 4 times in order to be fully built up with Beerus. 4 times isn't that bad. Reduces damage received by 30% when HP is 30% or more. So basically, unless you're dead, you're pretty much always having 30% HP. Plus an additional damage reduction of 30% when HP is 60% or more. Interesting number right there. Basically, if your HP is above 60% HP, you have 60% damage reduction. So that's something to keep in mind. Be very careful, though, because this is something that can actively go up and down. So if you start off on the turn at 100% HP, and let's say you don't have Beerus in slot 1, and whoever else got hit in slot 1 lowers your HP below 60%, you will lose that 30% damage reduction, and you will only have a total of 30% unless you hit below 30% HP, and then you have 0. So that is something to keep in mind. Watch your HP, watch what's coming in at him, because that damage reduction will fluctuate based on your HP going up or down. He has a 70% chance of launching an additional super attack when HP is 60% or less. I don't like this part of his passive. I think this is the one thing I hate the most about his kit. I find this to be relatively worthless. He doesn't get anything extra on his additionals. He has... I'm not going to say he hits weak. He doesn't hit weak. He actually... I have gotten him to about the 20 mil mark, which is pretty good. Fully built up with an ideal link partner. But only on a 170 team. So I know he can get to a very good, decent damage number, but I don't think it's relevant enough to say, yes, he needs to have this be going off. So I see why it would be nice, but at the same time, I don't see it helping much. Super class allies, Ki +2 and attack +30, and then extreme class allies, Ki +2 and defense +30. I'm okay-ish with this. I don't understand why they couldn't have just decided to do all allies attack and defense plus 30%. 30% is a very low number in this day and age of Dokkan. We are very much used to a 40% minimum. And then, 50, 60, even 70 supports now exist. So this minuscule amount of buff is nice. But at the same time, it's mostly just making up for the fact that you're not going to be linking very well with them, which we'll get into in just a sec. Rage is when HP is 60% or less, up to 2 times. So this can only happen at the beginning of the turn. It's not going to happen mid-turn by any means whatsoever. So basically, when you're below 60% or less, he will go into a rage mode. So if the turn prior to Beerus being on rotation, some dude gets you nearly killed, he'll go into a rage mode. He can do this 2 times. I do believe rage mode only lasts for 1 turn, but that's still 1 whole turn. That does help quite a bit. We'll actually go look at his rage mode before we really get into his links, which I feel like is part of his weakest bit. So when he goes into a rage mode, he actually... So he has like 3... When you go into rage mode, you have like a whole modifier of different super attacks, potentially, depending on the unit. And at the base minimum, he does like supreme damage. And then he can greatly raise attack temporarily and cause supreme damage. And then there's another one where it causes immense damage and stuns the enemy. I don't know what the actual like key numbers are here, but obviously you would want this one specifically. So if anyone has that information of at which point he actually does that, because I never got him to go into rage mode in my testing phases with him, and I think that was the issue. Is like it's really hard to get this guy to go into rage mode because he's so defensively good. He has key plus 1 attack plus 400%, plus another additional attack plus 50% per key sphere obtained, and then launches an additional attack that has a great chance of becoming a super attack. So this is really good. Like, he has built-in additional, he has some pretty good increase in damage, so his rage mode actually is doing damage, which is pretty impressive, I'm not gonna lie. I like his rage mode. It's just a matter of if you'll ever see it, really. Because with 30 to 60% damage reduction, along with guard being active, you have to have a really remarkably low defense to not be tanking virtually all of the most relevant fights in the game, in my opinion. You know, 3 million super is starting to become the new normal, and I think he can tank at a 3 million normal. Barely, but I think he can do it. He has Godly Power, Prodigies, Connoisseur, Innocence, Shocking Speed, and Fierce Battle. If you didn't notice, he only has 6 links. He's a very old he's a very old unit. And old units used to only have 6 links. Yeah, believe it or not. It's pretty crazy. He has Realm of Gods, Movie Boss, Sibling Bond, Worthy Rivals, Bond of Master and Cyborg, Exploding Rage, Space Driving Wars, Planetary Destruction, Legendary Existence, and Battle of Fate. So he's on quite a few good categories, but if you didn't notice from his 200% options, doesn't really have too many 200% options. And then as far as his link partners go, they are pretty, well, not good. Unfortunately. I wish Sleepy Beerus was good, but he's only good in a very small amount of content and a very small amount of teams, and which the same teams you'll be running with this Super EZA Beerus is not really the same teams you'll be running with him. And even if you do decide to force them together, like for say on like TEQ team, you do have to keep in mind that CP Beerus is very much orb dependent. If you do not focus a large amount of orbs on CP Beerus, he will get you annihilated very quickly. He's only good for like 1 turn. Typically, CP Beerus is someone that you want to float. So although he is technically his best relative partner, he's just not good enough in my opinion. And the same thing is with the Whis and Beerus. Best link partner, not relevant. So therefore, it's really hard to suggest running them. I will say probably Whis, the STR Whis specifically, and Vados are probably his best partners, and they're just straight up dodge or die support units at the very best. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty rough trying to run him with an actual like partner, and that's my biggest gripe with him is he has virtually no modern meta-worthy partners. He has no perfect placement on any of his 200% options. He has some good placement that he could utilize in his 170 teams, but then you have to take into consideration he's only being 170 supported, not 200% supported, and that does affect his defense. So, let's go take a look at his defense compliments of Halvard. So, remember, he doesn't have super attack. He doesn't have any defense on super. So whatever he's got in his passive, that's it. That's all he's got. He does have the, there is part of his passive that gives him defense on super, which is why you see here with 40% support, post super, 1.24 million. That's after being fully built up, so getting hit 4 times. And having a movie boss or Realm of Gods ally with him at the same time. So, this looks like pretty good, 60% damage reduction with guard. Yeah, he's tanking everything. I mean, aside from Pink Zone mad bullcrap. But, yeah, he's tanking. He's good. He's definitely good. He is solid. Straight up solid. Like, he will not die as long as he super attacks first. But when you look at the calculations that Halvard does, which I appreciate greatly and immensely, you are not running EZA, STR, LR, Beerus, and Whis with this guy. So you're not getting the full amount of defense. You're not getting the full amount of damage. And definitely, more than likely, unless you force him onto a movie boss's team, where he's not necessarily going to be at home or even have any links activated, he's probably not even going to be on a 200%. So if you're rocking him on a 170 team, I would drop these numbers by a good 100, 200K. At Rainbow, by the way. So just keep that in mind. His defense will suffer. I think his defense is good, but it's just his team placement. That's my issue with him. But let's go ahead and go over to his builds, and then we'll go over his roll tips, and that'll be it for the video. So, all right. Once I can make stuff work. There we go. Alrighty then. So, for his 55% option on the right side of the screen here, 55%, I would suggest you just give him a level 5 additional silver or a level 5 additional dodge. So this is either or. When you look at this is either or, not both, unless you really have that and want to use it. It's either or. And then I would highly suggest giving him a defensive orb. When it comes down to the units that have both damage reduction and guard, I usually, like 90% of the time, will be putting a defensive orb on them because their damage with damage reduction and guard, just adding even a little bit of defense to them helps them immensely. It really does. It really does. When a unit has damage reduction and guard, that's when defense orbs matter. That's when the extra dupes matter as well. So, and speaking of which, let's move on to his actual dupes build here. And once again, it's the same thing pretty much. And I apologize that I can't be more specific, but it's either you give him full additional or you give him full dodge. Or mix the two. He is a tech unit, so he has built-in crit already, unfortunately. So it's a level 15 additional or it's a level 15 dodge. You put the last bit of the nodes, which would equal up to level 6, and that will go into whichever one you didn't choose. I don't suggest bothering to give him any more crit. I don't. He's got 50% chance built in, and then because of the level 5 of being a tech unit, he has an extra 10% from his hidden potential. So I don't see a purpose to really giving him crit, especially when he can only super attack once at most. I will say his damage is pretty decent, so additionals will help with damage. If you just want to treat Beerus as a total defensive and supportive unit, full dodge would not be a bad idea. I'm not a full dodge connoisseur by any means necessary, but I can definitely tell you full dodge is a build for Beerus that would be just fine. But, you know, if you want to do a mixture of the two, that's fine too. Beerus is pretty good. He's doing his job, and I think his job is straight up being a tank, and then he's also supporting at the same time. He's fantastic, really. But once again, it's either dodge or additional, and then make sure you put that bronze as a defense. That's the biggest recommendation I have, is that the bronze is a defense orb. That's what my biggest suggestion is. Even a level 7 if you got it. Level 7 on him, woo boy. That'd be pretty nice. That'd be pretty nice, not gonna lie. He's very good. He is very good, by the way. Let's go ahead and go look at buttons. Let's go look ahead at his roll tips. So, as I said before, I do consider Beerus to be a defensive unit. I do not consider him a damage dealer. I don't even really consider him a support unit, because he does support, but just not that much. He's primarily a tank that I feel is best served into slot 1 or slot 3. He's not a slot 2 unit. I feel like he can be a slot 2 unit if there's a better tank, or he has a perfect link partner, at which case then, you know, slot 1 or slot 2. But on some teams, specifically movie bosses, I would just float him. I really would. He'd be a solid slot 3 unit that would never die from a super attack. He's supporting units at the same time, regardless if they're a extreme unit or a super unit. So, I mean, slot 3 is 100% a viable position for him. As far as his teams go, you can run him on the Brolys. I just feel like he kind of hinders them a little bit, depending on your team options. You know, not everybody has the perfect layout for either of the Broly teams. So he could be a very solid unit to be throwing onto either of those teams. I just feel like in LR Broly suffers because he wants uncontrollable power allies with him. And then Lord Slug is a good option. Unfortunately, once again, Beerus is a super type. So because he's super type, he actually is affected negatively because of the domain, which will weaken super units for as long as it's up. Beerus is a good tank. He's not such a good tank that the domain won't hurt you. He can still take a good chunk of damage. If you go against Go Frieza fight and you make it to the last stage and somehow you have Lord Slug's freaking domain up. And he gets supered, even post-super. You could either take a good chunk of damage or die. You really could. Because the domain effect will hurt you. As far as partners go, I'd have to say his only meta-worthy partner is honestly TEQ. Otherwise, I mean, Whis and Beerus are literally his perfect partners. And the music turned off. You know, Whis and Beerus and then Pajamed Beerus are his best partners, but they're not meta-worthy, at least not in my opinion. But they are his perfect link partners. If you really want a throw-in to have a actual rotation with Beerus, it's either STR Whis or Int Vados would be the best. Both of these you can run with TEQ as leader. I did forget to mention Beast Gohan. Beast Gohan is an option. You're not going to get a crap ton of links off with him. And obviously Beast Gohan wants to be in slot 1. But I feel like Beerus could float on that team. It is Bond of Master and Disciple led, so you can go ahead and throw other Bond of Master and Disciple units on the team that could be benefiting from Beerus being on there. So I don't think he's the worst leader to be thrown under. I still don't think he's the best, though. And he is only 170 on both TEQ and Beast Gohan's team. But as I said before, I think he has very poor 200% options, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I think that's gonna be it. That's it for the roll tips. We already went over his defense, 1.2 million maximum. And yeah, I'd say he's a good defensive unit to just chuck onto the team, randomly supporting. But until he gets a perfect link partner, until he gets a perfect team, he's just a good floating kind of unit. He's just a good throw-in to be a decent tank and support option. So anyways, guys and everyone, ladies and gentlemen, let me know how you're going to build him. What teams... I really am curious, actually, what teams you're going to run him on. Really, please do tell me what teams you're going to rock with this guy, because I want to know. But anyways, thank you for watching. Have a good day and a good night.